As I say in my next book, prayer puts the whole universe in perspective. Secondly, I believe we must learn to live peacefully. In this burning world, it often seems to us, as Flannery O'Connor said, that the violent bear it away. What we call the daily news looks like a series of snapshots from hell. What we call history seems like a long road of blood sometimes. So how can my living peacefully counter all that? And yet, in spite of all, Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the peacemakers." If each one of us in this room today chooses the way of peace, let's be clear about this: wars will not end. But if each of us chooses the way of peace, by just that much, the power of war will be lessened. And here we may take our life script from the great prayer of Francis of Assisi. And as we go through our days, let us promise that where there's hatred, we will sow love. Where there's injury, we will show forgiveness. Where there's doubt, we will counter it with faith, and where there's despair, we shall bring hope. Where there's sadness, we shall bring joy. Let's not worry about being consoled. Let's go out and console others. Let's not worry about whether the world understands us. Let's try to understand the world. Let's have faith that if we give, we shall receive. That if we pardon, we shall be pardoned. And if we die, we shall be reborn. And if each of us can do that, then by just that much, by just the measure of our individual lives, the world will be that much closer to peace. Thirdly, I believe we must learn to love greatly. For Jesus, love was the sum of the commandments. For Paul, it was the chief of the virtues. For the Buddha, it was the foundation of compassion in life. So let's be with the ones we love. Let's be with our families and our friends, with our relatives. Let us grapple them to our souls with hoops of steel, as Shakespeare said. And let us love the ones we're with. Father Pedro Arrupe, the former superior general of the Jesuits, wrote this, I quote, "Nothing is more practical than finding God. That is, than falling in love in a quite absolute and final way. Because what you're in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what gets you out of bed in the morning. It will decide what you do on the weekends, what you read, who you know, what breaks your heart, and what fills your heart with joy and gratitude." So Arrupe concludes, fall in love, stay in love. It will decide everything. And finally, we must learn to work with mastery. One of the things you graduates ought to be walking out of here with today should be knowledge and skill that will enable you to make your way in the world. As a faculty member, I certainly hope that one of the things you've learned here is the value of good hard work, how to recognize it and how to produce it. I hope we've demanded good work of you, and I do hope that we as faculty have modeled it for you. I hope that because in our work, in our professions, the needs and the wants and the dreams of the world meet our personal wants and dreams. So let's promise one another today that we'll never use the excuse, "I have to make a living," to ignore many large and small fires that are burning all around us. Let's not ever say, "I would spend more time helping the poor. I would spend more time bringing about peace, but I have to make a living, don't I?" And here I think we should return to the story of Avalokiteshvara, whom we left a few minutes ago with his head exploded in 11 pieces, because the story doesn't end there. In this Buddhist tale, the gods, seeing his great compassion, took each of those 11 pieces and made them into individual heads, which they put on the neck of Avalokiteshvara, stacking them up and facing in all directions, so that he never again would miss seeing someone in need of help. And then, more amazing still, they affixed to his torso 1,000 arms. And in each hand of those 1,000 arms, they put a different implement. So one hand held a pen, another one a rake, another one a hammer, another a plow. One holds a soldier's sword, another one a spindle, another one the scholar's book, and so on. I was told by a Buddhist priest in Japan that this statue represents this, that each implement in each of the 1,000 arms of Avalokiteshvara represents a different occupation or a profession. And the message of that statue is that every occupation can be a means to salvation if your occupation is turned to the ends of compassion. Each of us, no matter what our job in the world, can become a vehicle of compassion, or in Christian terms, each of us, through our work in the world, through our profession, can become an arm of God if we do our work well and if we do it with mastery. So those of you who will be teachers, teach the world's children peace. Those of you out here who will be doctors, heal the world's sick. Those of you who will become therapists, ease the world's mental anguish. You future lawyers, work not just for law, but for justice. Those of you who will be businessmen and women, work for the wealth and the well-being of all the world's people, not just yourselves. In short, we all have to learn to bring the inner fire of our passion and our compassion to fight the world's fire, no matter what we end up doing for a living. We must fight the world's fire with the kind of inner fire that Jesus, who was a carpenter, was talking about when he said, "I have come to bring fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were blazing already." In my 25 years here at Aquinas, I've always been impressed with how many of you have already learned this lesson. A lot of you out here in your black robes have been far away on service trips. You've been to Oaxaca, Mexico, to Casa Hogar in Peru, to Appalachia. You've taken the fire of your faith and your convictions to strangers. Many of our graduates go on to years of service in the Peace Corps or Vista or the Jesuit and Dominican Volunteer Corps. Recent English grads I know have served in the slums of Santiago, Chile, and also South Central Los Angeles. But here's the thing, we don't have to go that far. The whole world, after all, is on fire, not just the remote parts of it. All we have to do is reach out our hand to the person nearest to us. We all need help. We all can give help. As the Talmud says, he who saves one life saves the whole world. So the life of the dove in our opening story was worthwhile. Even though she perished before the flames of the world were put out, her life was worthwhile because she was engaged in the world she found herself in. She didn't ask to be born in a world on fire, but seeing it on fire, she responded with a fire of her own, a burning passion not to fly by the world's problems, not to seek a safe but illusory refuge on the shore somewhere, but to do what she could while she could with what she had. It's all any of us can do. It's all any of us is asked to do. Today, you graduates are sent forth in faith to fight the fire of the burning world with the fire of your passion and your compassion. So be engaged in the struggle and the dream of the world we live in, this world which is and always was on fire. Bring your fire to it. Welcome to the burning world.